Hello and welcome! Silrace here with WoW Classic and World of Warcraft, as in BFA at the time of this recording. This is a healer macro guide. This is what I personally use in the game to make my healing in dungeons and raids and so forth much easier. Note that you can also make use of this for all your damage dealers who have some kind of a cure or a heal. For example, a mage with the remove curse. Alright? So let's dive into it, and first of all, let me say that this relies entirely on the in-game macro system. So if you look at my user interface and think, hey, that's not the UI I use, it doesn't matter. This does not rely on any add-on at all, so what user interface you use does not matter. You can use the default UI, you can use whatever custom-made UI you want, and this will work for you. Now, let me toss you the macro on the screen right here. You can look at it yourself. If you are familiar with macros in World of Warcraft or in general, you can look at this and go, okay, now I understand what you're doing, and get on going, you're done here. For anybody else who doesn't understand this, or who, has questions, whatever, please post questions in the comments below. I am going to break this down piece by piece, explain what it does and why it does work for that way, and at the end I'm going to explain how to use this in your own gameplay, because this requires ever so slight changes to the general gameplay to take the most use out of this, alright? You may have to adjust your healing style ever so slightly. However, I would say if you are using just default UI and you're doing the usual thing of like clicking your target then healing it, this is going to make your life that much easier. And the main point, let me reiterate, this does not rely on any add-ons. So you can use this no matter what your setup is. Alright? So, with that out of the way, let's start breaking this thing down, shall we? Oh, and before I move on to breaking it down, let me toss you another screen here where this same macro made for Druid for regrowth and for Chamois for chain heal. It does not matter which ability you put there at the end, alright? Also, I just realized as I'm recording this that I forgot to make one for Paladin, but I'm going to skip that because I am playing Horde in Classic, alright? So even if you're Paladin, you can just put in your Paladin heals, alright? Anyways, let's break it down. Now, moving on. First line is hashtag or pound sign, whatever you wanna call it. Show tooltip and the name of the spell in your healing macro. What that does when you combine this with leaving the actual icon for the macro when you are making the macro into the red question mark. So what this does is it changes the tooltip when you drag that macro into your hotbar into the tooltip of the spell in question. That means it reflects its cooldown, it tells you what the spell is when you mouse over it on your hotbar, just like it was any spell. So basically it turns the actual hotbar button of the macro into the exact same as if it was the spell in question. So let's move on to the next line. So for the rest of this, I am going to take that long string of the macro itself and break it down bracket section by bracket section, alright? So it starts with /cast, and I know macro enthusiasts in the comment section will point out that you can use /use instead. However, I find it is much easier to explain this to people who have not used macros, not necessarily new players, but just people who haven't used the macros in World of Warcraft. It's much easier to explain it using /cast, because that lets them instantly know, okay, I am casting a spell here. Anyway, moving on. Inside square brackets, and note that these all have to be square brackets, at mouseover, help, exists. What happens here is that if your mouse cursor is on top of a friendly target, that's what the help is for, this actually triggers. The exists is there to make sure that there is something underneath your mouse cursor for this to do anything. And that at mouse over means that your mouse cursor can be on top of a friendly on your screen itself, or you can just mouse over the actual interface panel of somebody. Whether it is a group member you can see in your group window or a raid frame, it doesn't matter. You can even mouse over your pet's health bar on your screen and heal your pet. However, if you are mouse overing nothing, or if you are mouse overing a hostile target, this does not trigger. Help and exists. If you are mouse overing nothing, the exists, well, nothing exists. If you are mouse overing a hostile, it's not a helpful target. That's why this is for healing. Alright, moving on to the next. So next bit is really simple. It's just square brackets with help. This means that you are healing a friendly target you have actually targeted. If your actual target you have selected is hostile, this does not trigger. It doesn't do anything because you are trying to help somebody. If your target, however, is a friendly target, you are going to heal that. Simple. So the next section is in square brackets. Remember always the square brackets. At target, and note the target is actually just one word, comma help. What this does is it tries to heal the target of your currently selected target. So what happens is that you as a healer may need to occasionally do some damage. You are wanting a boss in WoW Classic, you are actually casting some damage dealing spells, so forth. What this does is that it allows you to heal the target of whoever you are damaging. Let's say in a raid situation you are casting some damage spells for once, and the boss you are casting them on is actually beating on the main tank. Now you do not need to change your target to the main tank. All you need to do is click your healing spell and this will heal the target of your target. If you are targeting the boss is targeting the main tank, you just press your healing button and you are healing the main tank. Very useful. Moving on. And at the final end we have two square brackets with nothing in them. Note that there's absolutely nothing in them. And then after this you have the name of the spell at the very end. Now, the reason for these two square brackets at the end is to ensure that the spellcast tries to do something. Instead of giving you error messages or simply nothing happening when you are trying to heal, this tries to cast the spell to its default target. Whatever you have targeted, it tries to cast it on that if no other condition before this, exists, as in there is nothing else it can try to do, and that's why this is there at the very end. Now let's talk about the negatives of this setup here. And there really is only one, and that one is the mouse over targeting. This will take a little bit of doing. Look at where my mouse cursor is right now. And then when I start healing, look what happens. I am healing the target under my mouse cursor. Even though I might be wanting to heal myself or somebody else, because of where my mouse cursor rests, I am healing this particular target. Alright? That is the only thing which happens. Now, look, if I move my mouse cursor away, I am healing myself, because there is no friendly target under the mouse cursor. Alright? That's what the mouse over targeting does. However, if I hold right mouse button, look at what happens. I'm healing myself. And that is the very, very simple solution. When you need to make sure that you are healing yourself or the thing you are actually targeting, you just hold down right mouse button. And that solves the entire problem. So let's talk about actually using this macro in gameplay. Like, how do you use this to its fullest potential in any given situation? And that was the reason I made this macro for myself already years and years ago for healing in World of Warcraft. Because it gives me the most options in any given situation. When I make every single one of my healing spells like this, I can heal the target which needs to be healed no matter what else am I targeting at any given time. I may be targeting a dungeon boss expecting to have to, for example, interrupt its spell cast or dispel it. I may be targeting a tank of the team, being pouring heals into the tank, and then somebody else gets damaged. All I have to do is mouse over their frame or mouse over them on my screen and hit a healing button. I do not need to change any of the targets away from the things I actually need to be targeting to be able to heal, and that's what the whole mouse over section is for. But also because I sometimes may need to swap between, for example, a main tank and an assistant tank. I may just be targeting the actual raid boss, and when the raid boss switches from tank to tank, I can heal the person the raid boss is actually targeting. And the only negative side to this entire thing is I have to look at where my mouse cursor is on the screen, and if I am somehow lost the track of it, all I have to do is hold down right mouse button, and I never accidentally waste a cooldown on something I wasn't supposed to heal. Because if I hold the right mouse button down, there is nothing under my cursor. The cursor vanishes, and then all my heals go into my actual targeted units. And that is why I recommend you try this out. And if you don't like it, you don't like it, that's entirely up to you. This is how I do all my healing, and I have found it over the years to be extremely useful for PvE and PvP, because I like PvP, and in PvP having more options available at any given time is usually a very good thing. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you found this useful, and if you find this useful for yourself, then definitely make use of it and spread the word. Let's get all of our dear healer friends outputting their maximum potential. As said, thank you very much for watching.